Welcome to Island Treasure's mini podcast for caregivers. I'm your host and certified caregiver consultant, Allison Van Schie of Alongside Caregiver Consulting. This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Cabin Teely Contracting in the Comox Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada, where we care too. No Time for Burnout was an engaging podcast interview with Zander, Keig, and this mini version of the podcast highlights a few of Zander's key points as a caregiver, including how to address what leads to burnout. Listen now to what Zander has discovered works for him to focus on.
Focusing on the negative will impact me negatively. Focusing on the positive impacts me positively. And the only way I'm going to be able to do my job is if I focus on those positive things, or else I'm going to become less effective. I'll become pessimistic and apathetic, and that leads to burnout. And I don't have time to burn out. My father needs me.
Yeah.
I need me. My wife needs me.
Yeah.
You know, my clients, everybody. You know. So I mean, clearly anybody could do what I do, but it works well for me to be more focused on the positive and the pleasant and the expanding rather than the opposite of those things. So that's what I would say to people is expose yourself to more of that, right? Expose yourself and pace yourself. Pacing yourself is really important because I can be of no service to anyone if I can't be of service to myself first. And so I have to pace myself and not overwork my brain, my body, not overwork. That happens a lot, when we're under stress, when we have stressors and our body is under stress. I can compartmentalize. I'm actually good at compartmentalizing, but I know that it's necessary to go back to the compartment or else it's going to overflow.
So we focus on the positives and learn to pace ourselves to avoid overstressing our brain or body. We may not have the ability to compartmentalize as Zander has, but we can certainly appreciate other ways of reducing our stress, such as by experiencing nature. Listen as Zander explains the calming effect of fractals in nature.
I like to spend a lot of time out in nature because the science says that exposure to fractals is super important. And so fractals are the repetitive images in nature. So all the branches with all the leaves and tree after tree, right? Cloud after cloud, field of flower after flower. So somehow our brain sees those repetitions and it has a calming effect. The research I've looked into says about 60% decrease in stress. Not a lot of people know about that. I know I didn't learn about it until I was doing stress management webinars as a facilitator. I was like, oh, this is fascinating. And I looked into it. And now it makes sense to me why I just think of kids. What do? They lay around and look at the sky. They stare at the trees. It's like, it's just, there's something really ancient about it in our DNA.
Now we hopefully have a good understanding of how to enjoy the calming effect of fractals in nature, and are in a better position to hear about the many resources available to caregivers. Start by seeking out supports specific to our needs, whether that's information on Alzheimer's or dementia, or for caregivers of veterans, for example.
Well, definitely seek out support. There are a lot of different organizations around the United States in particular that I'm more familiar with. And then also that are specific too, like there's some that are just dementia, some that are Alzheimer's. You have some that are, for much older adults, younger adults. You have things that are for caregivers, things for the people that we're providing care to. So there's a lot of really great resources. If you're a caregiver to a member of the veteran community, somebody who has served in the U.S. military in particular, you should see about getting that person enrolled in the Department of Veterans Affairs Health Administration to get them, get all those benefits for that person, but also Veterans Benefits Administration.
Zander reminds us that asking for help just means we care. It isn't a sign of weakness.
For people who don't like to ask for help, for people who are worried about what asking for help means, it just means you care.
Excellent. No, that's
There's
awesome.
a lot of resources. I mean, I'm a social worker, so there's even a bunch of resources. It's like you can't ask a social worker a simple question. It's like it's going to be like a 30-minute response with all kinds of resources and information, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure glad I connected with you on LinkedIn, Zander, because this has been a very good interview, a very good chat, and a wealth of resources. For more information and a complete rundown of the resources mentioned by Zander, along with the stories he shares, listen to the full episode of No Time for Burnout. I recognize how precious your time is, especially as caregivers. And so this mini podcast is designed just for you. And when you're able to listen to the full episode, feel free to leave a rating and a review. If you find yourself in the midst of your own caregiving journey and need some supports, I invite you to tap into alongside-caregiverconsulting.ca. Thanks again for listening to this mini version or watching the video version of the Island Treasures podcast. And thank you to Zander Keig for your wisdom and insights. Take care.